Welcome, everyone. Today I have a brand new guest to the show. It's Raider. Am I pronouncing this right? Is it DeBoard? Radar DeBoard?
Yeah, radar to board. Yep.
Excellent. Now, can you give yourself an introduction?
Yeah. What I'm a horror writer because I'm not too good at writing much else. I'm
Have
a
you
horror
tried?
writer though, a little bit here and there, but man, it's just I can't get the same kind of flow and quality that I can when I do horror, and that's my life anyways. I do so much stuff with horror, so that's why I tend to stick with that genre. I'm sure there's a lot of crossover for sci-fi too, which I'm sure I could do that at some point, but I really like horror, so I'll stick to it for now. But I've done a
Yeah.
lot of that. Been writing since 2019, but to actually make a pun, I have been flying under the radar for quite a bit because I haven't. It was mostly just short stories and stuff for a long time, going in online magazines and stuff. So if you Google
Yeah.
my name, I'm sure you'll just find some random story I wrote 4 or 5 years ago. That's like fine.
Speaking of puns, I was going to do a pun on Twitter, and I totally forgot. I was going to say I'm going to be talking to Raider DeBoard in a few minutes, and if he isn't on your radar, ... he should be.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
Before we continue, I want to apologize again because we were supposed to be on at 7 my time and 6 your time, and I got it confused and I thought it was 6 my time and 5 your time. I don't know how. Well, actually, I do know how. It's because I'm more used to going at 6, so it's all my fault because I scheduled you in for 7, and then I broke that, and I just want to. I'm pretty sure I caused some hecticness on your end, and I just want to apologize.
No, that's all right. This is so funny too because this exact kind of situation, has happened one time prior to where I was scheduled to be on a live, and then the person normally does their lives at one time, like an
Hmm.
hour later, and they
Yeah,
pushed it, like moved it up for me, and then
yeah, that's what I did pretty much.
it's
Yeah,
the exact same situation. Yeah, so and then like I was at a family gathering, not like an important one or anything, so don't feel bad. But it
yeah.
was just like about 10 minutes from here at my in-laws' house,
Oh
and
man, yeah.
you messaged me, and I was like,
What?
wait a minute. Yeah, I was like, uh oh,
Oh
I
God, I
got
really
that was
gotta, I really gotta double check these freaking things before I just jump in. I'm so sorry, man.
no, you're totally fine. It makes for a great story too.
Yeah, yeah. Like the story I told you about Ramsey Campbell before I hit the live. That was
Right.
fun too. Um, so I first found you on TikTok, and I can't even remember if you followed me first or if I followed you.
Yeah, I
And it was
can't
also so
remember.
long ago, I can't remember what video it was of yours that I first saw. But how
It's
long have you been doing TikTok?
what, since summer of 2022, and it's still it's still like kind of mind-blowing to me that people enjoy my content on TikTok,
Yeah,
because I don't know, I don't feel like I'm making good content, but I guess I don't know. So you liked it enough to follow, so
yeah.
I must be doing
And
something right if Jason White follows me.
oh no, no, I think you have a lot of followers, right? Like I haven't really looked, and it's not
I
really
don't
important necessarily,
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say follower count isn't important. I think it's definitely, for me, it's quality over quantity when it comes to followers. And
yeah.
I've definitely got a great quality. There's some fantastic people on TikTok,
Oh, for
and
sure. Yeah,
yeah, they got a great horror community on there too. And like,
absolutely.
if people are on the fence, I don't know if I would change that, but my opinion is go for it. Try out TikTok because there is a lot of good things on there. It's not
That's
just
fu-
people doing random dances.
Yeah, that's so point on because I used to hate TikTok. I was one of those people. I was like, oh, I hate TikTok, because all it is people dancing, right, or mimicking movie quotes and stuff. Which if you like that, you like it. It's fine, but it wasn't for me. But then I found like this weird, like not just book talk, but that once I found book talk, it was like this is something completely different than what I thought it was.
Right.
I thought it was just people dancing with books. but uh, but no, there's like space talk. I love space videos. I
Oh, there
like
you go.
science fiction too, and there's so many different aspects to TikTok. It's quite incredible. So I'm a total
Yeah,
convert.
yeah, same here, because I also thought it was just dumb people doing
Yeah.
dances, and I was like, why would I ever need that? And then back when my first books had come out, I was on like a call with my publisher, and they mentioned like, yeah, TikTok is probably one of the best ways to market your stuff. And I went, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll get a TikTok and try to do it that way. And ironically, like, you know this, Jason, I would say 1 out of every 10 of my videos talks about a book. So there's like, I remember when I first started really kicking up support for my first self-published book that came out earlier this year, a bunch of my followers went, "You're an author?" Because they
I
just
was one
had
of them. I
no
was like,
idea.
you right? Because I think one of the first videos of yours I saw, I think you were talking about a favorite horror movie of mine. Yeah, I can't remember which one, but the movie thing is what calls to me. And I was like, oh, I'll follow this guy. He seems cool. And then I think he followed me back. I haven't done videos in a while, though. I've been terrible. I've been focusing mostly on YouTube here, but I want to start doing more TikTok content again. Have you
Well,
found
I
that?
mean, I'm right there for you. I'm still following you.
Yeah. Have you found that TikTok is helpful at all in bringing readers to your work?
Yeah, I mean, because so for me, it's like I don't sell many copies of my books anyways, and that's not why I do it.
Hmm.
It's just to get it to someone. And I feel like TikTok does a really, really good job of that because people are just more like visual, they're more intrigued in that way, and more like, entertainment wise, they go for the stuff that they can like watch,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And being able to watch me explain this is what my book is about, is has garnered some success. Now there are some pain points on TikTok because the bane of my existence is my most successful TikTok video is a review I did during last October for the Ginger Dead Man versus the Evil Bong. And
Yeah.
I hated this film. I hate that film. I don't like it. And
Yeah.
all I like it was just a minute of me going like, thank God I don't have to watch this series anymore. And for some reason, it's just miles ahead of everything else in terms of like
It took off.
views.
Yeah. It went viral, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Viral.
remember you saying in another video, out of all my videos, why does it have to be that one?
It's so annoying. Like, why? And I mean, yeah, I make a lot of dumb stuff on TikTok too, but I feel
Mm.
like that's a little more deserving. Come on. So,
I think
but
I don't know. That's pretty crazy, and you have my sympathies.
thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, I'd say TikTok is pretty good at like getting people to like notice your books and everything. There's a few really great people on Book Talk who support me. Victoria, oh God, I can't remember her name, but
I
they're
know who you're
friends.
talking about.
Victoria and Karen, and
I love Karen. I love both of them.
yeah,
Victoria and Karen. They're so huge within the horror community there, and they
they're
have the
so
splatter chatter.
fantastic.
And
Yeah, they have a
I
splatter
like to give
chatter.
a shout out to Splatter Chatter. It's you can go join it on Discord. It's a book club about splatter, extreme horror
Right.
and whatnot. I'm a member of the group, though I don't participate because I'm a huge lurker, and also I have like so many I have so many books for my own channel that I have to read that I can't always participate with other group book groups, book reading groups. So, but they're awesome. They're really incredible.
Yeah, I seen I was watching your past couple of videos, your YouTube vids, and I'm like, man, that Jason's TBR is wild. There's
Hmm.
just so
It
much in it.
absolutely is. Yeah, like I used to joke around and say, it was a mountain and like a TBR mountain, and then I
Yeah.
was like, it's not a mountain anymore. It's a goddamn planet with its own moons orbiting around it, and it's never ending.
Each moon is just a sub genre of horror.
Yeah.
We got
Oh,
the body horror moon about to crash in.
it's gonna collide, and then everything's just gonna be scattered everywhere. It's gonna
Oh
have
no.
rings and everything. It's gonna be a disaster. But I have to say that your channel did drive me to one of your books, because you have a science fiction horror novel, um, The Altar from Space, which, of course, I haven't read yet, but I bought it when you
Oh.
talked about it. And so I was wondering, can you tell us what this story is about?
Yeah, so this one was my first published book with Raventail Publishing back in 2022. It's not that
Hmm.
far ago, but I'm gonna say back in. Um,
It's like way back in the days when,
way back 2 years ago.
2 years ago does feel like a long time ago with
It
everything
does.
that's going on in the world, right?
Yeah, it's like there's a certain just it feels like there's a craziness every other day, and it makes time feel like it's going by so
Oh
much
god,
slower than
lately
it
it's
is.
like every hour it's something new is going on and everyone's freaking out. And
You're
it's
like,
scary
"Stop."
world, scary world.
But I published it back 2 years ago, and so the story basically follows kind of like Event Horizon, basically.
Sweet.
Um, so just a group of people get a distress signal. Well, the distress signal comes in, and they get tasked with going and like repairing the spaceship, and they like show up to do the repairs and everything, and of course something is wrong, and there's like all these various monsters and creatures, and that's I had so much fun coming up with like different creatures for it.
Hmm.
But there's all these different monsters and creatures that are on the ship that are obviously, they got to avoid. And there's an evil cult on there, as well,
Awesome.
of the crew members. Yeah, who are like, one of their leader has like kind of cosmic powers that he can use too. So there's a lot going on, but that one, and then I did a sequel to it
Oh,
called
did you?
I did as the Artifact Store. I don't advertise the second one too much, not because it's bad or anything. I just forget to.
Yeah, yeah. I understand that, because like when I'm on TikTok or even on my own videos here, it's really hard for me to talk about my own work, and I don't even know why that is. It just doesn't enter my mind.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
have the
like
same issue sometimes? Unless
I
you like specifically go out to do it, you know?
yeah, and that's why there's so few of my videos on TikTok that like are about my books, because it's just I forget to, but two, I also feel weird about just like self promoting. But I feel like that's something a lot of most writers struggle with, is going like, we're
Yeah.
not marketers. We're not supposed to go out and go like, hey,
I have a
like
book.
here's my sales pitch. It feels like, to me, it feels weird and kind of skeezy, even though it's not. It's definitely not, but for me, it feels like it is. So like,
Yeah.
I make a conscious effort. I'm like, hold up, did I just post a TikTok video about one of my books yesterday? Well, I can't post it today
Yeah.
or for the next week. I gotta wait. So
Yeah. Well, I think you do your TikTok quite well, because there's some people who go on and all they talk about is their own work and that's it. I think I'm all for self-advertising, but I
yeah.
think you should have like a topic that you talk about besides your own work too. And so I think you do it very well myself. That's what I
Oh,
think.
thank you.
I think you could probably talk about your own books a little bit more, because I will say that I'm the type of person who I like seeing people talk about their own work, just as long as it's not every single video. I like it when people
Mm,
talk about either books or movies from other people. I just like the mix, you know what I mean?
right. Kind of liven things up a bit.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
I love horror movies so much though.
Yeah,
I
you do.
do.
And I think you've seen way more horror movies than I could ever have, because when you're talking about horror movies, I've seen a lot of horror movies, but in the past 5 to 6 years I haven't been watching as many horror movies as I used to. It's mostly a time issue.
Mhm.
Um, but you pull some movies from like the 70s and 80s, and I'm like, have I seen that? I don't even know if I heard of it. So I'm curious, what's your horror origin story? How were
Ooh.
you introduced to horror?
Wow, that's a great question. I feel like because the movie I remember, and I'm sure I saw ones before it too. Like I'm sure I saw a few Universal monster movies with my parents,
Mm.
because they were fairly protective, conservative. They're like, you can't be watching, this spooky stuff, but like Universal monsters, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the first one that like made an impact, which is so random, is Halloween 5.
Really?
Yeah,
That,
yeah,
that's so
Halloween 5.
far up.
Yeah, well, because it was on AMC Monster Fest.
Okay.
The AMC used to do Monster Fest every October, where they just showed horror movies round the clock uh, during during the month. And I just was at my grandma's house. She had like a side bedroom with the TV that you like couldn't really, you couldn't peek in too easily to see what, check in to see, are you watching something you shouldn't be? So I
Yeah.
I turned to AMC Monster Fest, and Halloween 5 just happened to be the movie that was playing, and I I was like 7 or 8, so probably a little too young to be watching that kind of film.
Yeah.
But I remember there's a scene where the main character, she's like trying to escape Michael Myers, and she's like hiding in a laundry chute, kind of like propped up on it, and he starts
Yeah.
stabbing into the laundry chute from like the side, and she's like, screaming, kicking her legs, and like trying to avoid this knife, and that just stuck with me as a kid, and I was like, that's cool. I want more of that, please. And so it sparked from there, and I mean, it kind of doled off towards the end of high school and the beginning of college,
Hmm.
because I became a film snob. I'll admit to it. Uh, and I was more like, hey, you know what? Movies need to be artful and they need to have a purpose. And that's kind of what I was feeling. And like, there's no need to watch dribble because that's a waste of time. And that's just how I felt during that period of my life.
Hmm.
And I was I was going through the AFI, the American Film Institute's top like 100 movies at the time. This is like in 2014. Yeah, 2014. Um, and I was watching them and going like, every once in a while I'd go, this movie sucks.
Yeah.
Like, this is not enjoyable. This is painful. The definitely the one I call out is Lawrence of Arabia, just because
Hmm.
it's so long, and nothing against anyone who likes Lawrence of Arabia. It was just so long. And when a movie has an intermission in it,
Yeah.
it's too long.
It's
It's
too
too
long.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like a few weeks after I watched that, I visited a friend out of town, and we went to go see It Follows.
Nice.
And it just happened to be, because it's artsy and it's artistic enough, and there's enough like ambiguity, and the shots are impressive, and it's like you can't tell what time it's from. It's very more art house feel to it than most horror movies. And I absolutely loved it. And that's what kickstarted horror back for me again, was It Follows, of all things. And so
Hmm.
like there was which really both ends of the spectrum here. You got Halloween 5 doing it when
Yeah.
and you got It Follows on the other end. So
Yeah. It
very,
Follows
very.
is such a good film, though. Like, I could see how that could be like your re-entry film. Like, you see this movie and you're just like, wow, I forgot just how good horror can be, right?
Yeah, it's like you got the infamous jump scare of like it's not really even a jump scare, but it's just so jarring, of that really tall guy
Yeah.
going entering from
And
the
he's like,
room. Like,
yeah.
it's a brilliant concept too, because like the whole movie, you're just also like the main characters just looking around at the screen like, what, it could be anyone, and
Yeah.
it could be coming at any minute. And I think that's just brilliant. And yeah, it was just the perfect catalyst to get me back into the horror genre, and I'm so glad that it did, because man, do I love horror.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a favorite movie, or are there too many favorite movies?
So I think my just favorite of all time has to be the original Halloween.
Yeah.
Um, it just it there's the soundtrack, just the kills and stuff. It's something I can put on at any time. I can almost quote the whole thing, and just watch it and enjoy it. It just holds a place in my heart, I think,
Mhm.
because I'm sure there's other movies in time, like horror films, that I'm like, that I feel more during a period of time, but Halloween is always the one I can just go back to.
Awesome.
Which I know is a pretty basic answer because a lot of people love Halloween, but
You
hey,
know what?
I'm
My
here.
my answer to that is very basic too, and it's John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh,
I
yeah,
remember I used to say that when nobody knew what The Thing was, and now so many people say that The Thing is one of their favorite horror movies. It's like it's become a cliche, and I'm
right.
almost embarrassed to admit it now. But
Oh
no,
no.
it'll always be. I watch it at least once a year, and like when I say at least, I mean just always around Christmas, and sometimes even
Oh,
like in the
all right.
fall. It's
I was not expecting Christmas.
it's got a lot of snow, right? It's
All
Antarctic,
right.
but yeah,
Fair. All right. Yeah, that's fair.
it doesn't make much sense. But yeah, I love it around Christmas time, and sometimes even in the fall. I don't know why, but always around those two time periods. It's very close to each other, but I just crave watching that movie. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I can definitely not fault you on randomly craving like some random movie that doesn't fit the season because um I around New Year's I'll start to really want to watch Hellraiser
Yeah.
because there was just a year when my wife now, but we were starting to date and I was house sitting for a friend and we just had a great time and we watched a great night and we watched Hellraiser. And this was right around New Year's. And so my mind just associates like Hellraiser and New Year's.
Yeah.
And I'm
That
like,
yeah,
well, it's
that is an interesting, like, it's New Year's Eve, it's time for some Hellraiser.
you
We're
guys
gonna
can
watch
have your New
all the
Year's
Hellraisers
resolution.
this New Year's Eve.
Oof.
That
Well,
would
I'm
be
not that
epic, but
dedicated.
yeah.
Yeah, there's too many, and
There's
they're
too many, yeah.
and most of them are really bad too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Well,
there's
they're not as bad as just say some of or all of the, Pumpkinheads, sequels. Those are awful. I
yeah, they get pretty. I mean, the
the
second
first
one's
pump
fine, but ugh.
I didn't like any of them. They're just awful.
Oh really?
I love Pumpkinhead, but anything after the first one is just, in my opinion, it's just awful. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah. Well, what? That's it. I'm leaving. No, I'm kidding. No,
What?
it's. I mean, what? This is ridiculous. No, I am not a Pumpkinhead sequel defender. I can understand why you would definitely not enjoy the second one.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not like it's a masterpiece.
This part
It's
two is
fine.
better than the first one. What?
Yeah, not a hot take here. I'm just
Yeah,
like, it's fine.
it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. I can see your point too. I think I was just really attached to the first one.
That's
Um,
fair. Well, yeah, that's
yeah.
fair because it doesn't because it's completely different. Like the second one, like the story. So I can understand like, kind of feeling a little bit like, oh, you kind of hurt the original, but I watch a
Yeah.
lot of crap, like a lot of bad movies. And
Well,
so maybe that's why I'm fine with it because I'm like, the bar's not high.
yeah, I do find though that that's the problem, or maybe some people like it, but that's the problem I would say with horrors. You have to sift through a lot of crap before you get to the little gold nuggets, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, I know that pretty darn well because every October I like watch 31 horror movies, one for each day of the month, and I try to keep them to movies I just haven't seen yet. And yeah, the vast majority of what I watch during that time period is just utter garbage.
But
It's
you do
so
find some
bad.
good ones, right? Like you do find some new favorites.
Yeah, no, yeah. What last year? The Dark and the Wicked was a highlight.
Oh,
So that
that's a
was one
good
I
one.
found. Yeah, that's a good. I had never seen it before last year and was like, wow, what? Why did this one escape me? Intruder, which that one's a slasher.
Hmm.
From the 80s. It's that one's really good. I really like that. It's like a quick paced kind of slasher. The kills are innovative because it all takes place in like a grocery store that's going out of business.
Okay.
So like all the kills are like, someone gets. Oh, I know I don't want to ruin it. So, but
And
it's
that's
worth
called
checking out.
Intruder?
Yeah, Intruder.
I don't think I've
And
seen it.
then Bloody Muscle Bodybuilder in Hell is also it's a
Now, that's
wild
quite the
time.
title.
Yeah. It's like it's known as the Japanese Evil Dead because it is just like the same premise as the Evil Dead, so it's super low budget. You know they made it with like a home video recorder and stuff.
Okay.
They got to rely on like stop motion for stuff a lot, but it's such a bonkers film that I absolutely enjoyed watching it. So I don't know if anyone else could say that like it's a good horror film, but I'm going to.
You know what? I love Rawhead Rex, and I think I'm one of the
Oh, there
only
you go.
one. I even put it in one of my top 10 favorites lists
Oh
before,
wow.
and I think I'm like one of the only people to ever do that. So I think,
Yeah.
and I can see it not being exactly a quality film, but there's just something about it that I absolutely adore. So yeah, I
Yeah.
can give you that.
Yeah, and I can't fault you on it either because Rawhead Rex is not a bad movie. You are the first person I have ever met in my life who has actually like praised it. Like not because it's bad, but I just never heard anyone even like bring it up.
Oh man, I love that movie. I think I watched it when I was probably way too young, and that's why it's like nostalgia that
The
follows it.
nostalgia
But
got
yeah, nostalgia will get me every time, I have to admit.
that. That's fair. I'm a sucker for nostalgia and like a slasher with some innovative kills in it always gets me. The
Yeah.
slasher, everything else about it can be absolutely just dumb beyond all belief, like they didn't try. But if they go hard on the kills, I'm gonna call it a good movie anyways.
Yeah. You appear to really love slashers, is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the easiest, like because horror can be so many things. I love it as a genre because it could be so many things. And what I typically like to do for like it's my sort of turn on to just, relax sort of thing.
Hmm.
And slashers are just like the perfect kind of subgenre because you don't really have to think, you know, there's no
Hmm.
crazy world stakes. It's just, hey, we got to survive this random dude or
Yeah.
female, depending on which one you watch. And then at the end, there's some normally with a slasher, like if the slasher's hidden, it's like, oh, here's the twist reveal of why they're doing it, and it's always either bonkers or just like, oh, that's an actual good twist. So either way, I'm here for it. And there's just like I enjoy, especially the ones that know their camp and like can lean into that, like the Hatchet franchise is like the perfect
Yeah, that is insane.
example. Yeah, they're like the kills are like just all over the
Way over
top.
the top. Yeah.
It knows what it is. It's like we're not trying to be something else. This is an homage to the rest of the genre. It's
Yeah.
so that sort of stuff always just gets me. I always
I love
love
that.
that.
I love that movie. Those movies, I
Oh
should
yeah.
say. I think there's three of them, isn't there? Three?
4.
Or is it two? Is it four? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 4. Yeah, because I can't remember because it's the first 2. I think there's 3, and then Victor Crowley, I think, is the 4th one. I
Okay.
can't remember
Yeah.
the titles of them. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyways,
Have
oh,
have you written any of your own slasher stories at all? Like have you written a slasher novel?
that is one of the let's like one of the subgenres I haven't touched yet in horror, which is honestly surprising because I love watching them so much, and I enjoy reading slasher books too. Um, but yeah, I just haven't gotten around to making my own, and I feel like maybe it's because I feel like I wouldn't be able to maybe not necessarily do it justice, but do anything outside the box
Hmm.
for it. I feel like I need to have a great idea or just like some bonkers plot twist in it. Just like so wild,
Yeah.
that it's like it wasn't one person killing it, it was like 2 people sitting on each other's heads or something, or I don't know, something. I don't know. That's a
Yeah.
bad one. I'm not going to make that, or am I?
You could do Pillowhead. Pillowhead. I don't know why that just popped into my head.
It's pretty close to Pumpkinhead. Just
Pillowhead.
Pillowhead. It's me. I'm the.
Sounds like a Bizarro book, honestly.
It really does.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll do that next. Maybe I'll tackle that one next. I'm writing one right now, so I got to finish that one.
Yeah. I was wondering what horror authors inspired you to write your own fiction.
Oh yeah, well, I feel like R.L. Stein maybe not like got me into writing early on when I was a kid. I certainly don't emulate his style right now, which that's fair. There's a few Stephen King books I've read and stuff. For me, more than anything, it's film that really draws me to write, which I know sounds interesting, but like and I don't do much, like I don't do crazy descriptions in my books. There's not a large amount of detail that goes into it. I write it like someone's watching a movie, and that's because it's like cinema inspires me more to write. So that's where it comes from. And don't get me wrong, as I read, there's a few things that I like pick up here and there. I know you had Laurel Hightower on recently, and I read Dave the Door, and I'm just like a month or two ago, and was like, this is so damn good.
Yeah, she's awesome.
This is so incredible. And like I feel like not like I'm gonna steal your style, but I feel like I'm inspired by it to go like, well, maybe I can actually, add a little more detail and depth, and kind of, and the way her word selection is just incredible. I can't, ironically, I can't put it into words how she does it.
I feel like exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't put it into words.
She's one of my favorites. Was that your first Laurel Hightower?
Yeah, that was my first. Which it's like, as soon as I got done with it, I was like, well, I just haven't been living life to the fullest here. What am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, what have I been doing? Because I really have been. Yeah, The Ring is also really good.
Sable Star commented, The Ring is also an example of how good horror movies can be. Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And even the American remake of it's pretty solid too. So
yeah,
it's just like a different feel. But yeah, but Laurel Hightower, just like, because I was in a reading slump. Just life got busy, so on and so forth. Kind of like maybe you time thing with watching movies and stuff, and I just hadn't read much, unfortunately, because there was a lot on my TBR. I'll tell you that much. It was piling up.
You have your own planet and moons.
Yeah, and it definitely not your extent quite yet, but I'm sure it'll grow there. I let it. It's just the cover. I really like Laurel as a person, and I just picked it up. I started reading it, and now I'm just, because of this book, I'm out of my reading slump. I am actively reading stuff all the time now. I'm still a slow reader because I don't have too much time, but I am actively trying every night now to read something, just like a couple pages here and there.
If you read her again, I highly recommend 2 other novellas from her. Below is absolutely incredible, and so is Crossroads.
Okay, yeah.
Both those.
Let me see if I can reach them. I have over here, I just bought like a big old, here we go. I bought like 4 of her books at once.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I just went
Crossroads there.
Yeah, Crossroads, Below, Every Woman Knows This, and then Silent Key. I don't know if she has any others. Do you know?
I don't know. Those are the bulk of what I know. I haven't read them all. I've read the 3 novellas. I have Silent Key, but I haven't read it. And her short story collection, I have that on my Kindle, but I've only read one short story for it. But it was incredible. I want to, of course, read the rest.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say I'm on Gemma Amour's All Who Wonder Are Lost.
Oh, her short story collection she just
Yeah.
released. Yes.
Oh, wait, you know what? I have it right here. Oh, yeah. All Who Wonder Are Lost. Yeah, I thought books kind of stacked around. But yeah, All
Yeah,
Who
that's
Wonder Are Lost.
incredible too.
Yeah, oh, I only finished the first story. It's pretty great too. But so once I get through that, I definitely think I'm switching over to Crossroads. And then I got a list of like books like I gotta check out. I know I need to check out some Candace Nola work. Um, Brian Bower telling you to check out some. I'm gonna check out his stuff.
Mm.
I got like 3 of his things on
He
Kindle. 3 of his.
reviewed he reviewed your most recent book on Goodreads, I believe.
Oh yeah,
Brian
yeah.
Boyer.
He reached out because he's like he bought my most recent book, and I'm like, thanks, man. And he finished that in one night. So I'm slacking here. I need to pick up the slack because
Yeah.
he's putting me to shame. But but yeah,
Oh,
there's so many in the TBR.
yeah, we're going to talk about your most recent book shortly, but I just wanted to get this stuff out of the way. And you mentioned Gemma Amor, and I wanted to talk a little bit about her because you managed to get her to do the cover art for a collection of flash fiction short stories you put out, and that is A Year Spent in Horror. How did you get her to do the cover?
You know, I'm gonna ask you the same question too here in a second because I know that you got her to do the cover for what your Sasquatch story, or is it Yeti?
Yeah, it's Sasquatch, and it's coming out in
Sasquatch.
October. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
which that
Attack
is.
on Sasquatch Valley.
Ooh, there you go. So congrats to both of us because that is the high watermark of like book covers is just
Literally,
Gemma
pun intended,
doing.
because she does
Yeah.
watercolor, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but it's so, man, they're so good. They're so incredible. It kind of isn't fair that she has that much talent, you know,
Yeah,
because she's
she can
not
like
only is she
paint and write.
prolific, right? Yeah, she's a dual threat. I'm sure she's more than that too. I'm sure there's like so many other talents, but you know, it's incredible to like. I'll still go back and like I will look at that cover for A Year Spent in Horror and go like, damn, that's just a great color.
Yeah,
You know,
and
like a great cover. You know, bias
the
aside,
incredible thing is it's a picture of you, right? And half your face is like burning off.
yeah, yeah. I was dumb, and she was like, "Can I get like a reference photo of like a you or like a family member?" And I sent her a picture of me because I was like reference, and she sent the sketch of what she was gonna do, and it was like me and that, you know, and my face
Yeah.
melting, and I went, "Well, I can't stop the momentum here. This is too damn good," you know.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm so happy with how she did it too, and I'm sure you're gonna absolutely love what she.
Oh, I've seen the finished product now for
Oh, is it
mine.
finished? Okay,
Yeah, it's
nice.
finished. She just has to like do the last touches and put the words on the back cover and all that. And but I've seen what it looks like, and man, it's awesome. I'm so happy to have gotten her to do one of my covers, because it's, you know, it's a privilege.
Yeah,
She's incredible, like you said, she's incredibly talented, and just to have like all those colors and everything, she's very good with colors.
yeah.
And
Wow, it is wild. Yeah, because like the back cover for A Year Spent in Horror. That, and again, I'm not smart when it comes to like color palettes or anything.
yeah, me neither.
So like, I'm so thankful that she did it because like it just looks so beautiful, and I'm sure it's gonna look great on yours too. Oh man, I'm so happy for you to have
Oh,
that.
thanks. I was happy for you too. I saw you. It was partially seeing your book that gave me the idea to reach out to her, because I was like,
Oh really?
I was like, well, I've seen her work before, right? But
Yeah.
that, just seeing what she did with your book cover, I was like, that is so incredible. Like, she's done really great work before, but I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm gonna go on her website and see if I can, you know, get her to come on board with me. And thankfully, she was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny because that's how exactly it happened to me too. Granted, it wasn't me looking at my book, asking her to do my book,
Yeah, that would have been
but
weird
it
because it didn't
that
exist
would've
yet.
been strange. It's a paradox. Oh my gosh. But she I what is the the House of Yellow, or
Oh, the yellow. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like the
the
Yellow House
once.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that book cover. I remember her promoting it on Twitter when she was releasing the book, and I was like, that is the most
It's
impressive
incredible.
cover. I was like, that is incredible, and I just didn't know she had done it. I thought she'd gotten like some professional, like some. I'm not to say she's not professional, but like some that's their job is just to be a cover artist. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I could never reach those heights. But then around the time I was like, who the hell am I going to do the cover for this microfiction collection of mine? And like I had the idea in my mind of like someone kind of melting and stuff and decaying away or something like that.
Hmm.
And she promoted that she does cover art, and that was on there. The Yellow House was on there, and I went, that's it. That's what I want. I want that. And that's how I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get on board with her. I gotta try to get her somehow. And she was gracious enough to say yes. So thank you, Gemma.
That was, yeah. It's awesome. Now, A Year Spent in Hell, as you said, it's a collection. You could read it in 1 year if you wanted. One microfiction horror story a day. This feels like
Yeah.
it was maybe a challenge that you set yourself. Maybe it took you a year to write this, because this is just the way my mind works. But I envisioned when I was reading through some of these stories, I was just like, I bet he challenged himself to write one of these a day. Am I anywhere close to this?
Yeah, you're spot on, because there's like a hashtag on Twitter
Hmm.
called VSS 365 for very short story 365. And if you're a writer and you need and if you think my short narratives aren't doing too hot, I definitely suggest like trying it out for at least a couple months, because it will build that really quick. Um, and so I just joined it because I was like, well, not joined it, but I do it every day, and
Hmm.
I have for, geez, close to 3 years now. That's
So
wild.
is this something that you wake up and just sort of pump out before maybe writing anything else?
Yeah. So this is my schedule every single day, except for when I take like vacations. Is I will My alarm goes off, and I like look at my phone and open it to Twitter and go to the VSS 365 hashtag, and they always have a host who gives a prompt word every day, and they're
Oh,
like, this is the
interesting.
prompt word for the day, and I go, okay, that's the prompt word, and I go back to sleep because I always hit snooze, and when
Yeah,
the
me too.
alarm hits again, I'm like, all right, I'm formulating something here, and then I'll write that, and that's like the first thing I do every morning is
That's
just write
interesting.
one of these.
It's
Yeah,
like
and
you're
it's
telling your unconscious mind, you're like, here's the prompts. Now we're gonna go take a little doze, and you can come up with an idea while I'm doing that, right?
yeah, and it works like pretty well most of the time. There's sometimes I'll wake back up and go like, "What do you got for me, subconscious?" And it's like, "I got nothing, man.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
don't
then you have to
know."
force yourself.
Yeah, and then I'm like, what do I do here?" And it's always so funny with those two, because I never know what people are going to like of those, like my. Oh,
Hello?
oh no,
Oh, you're here.
is that me that went out?
Yeah, you went, or maybe I went out. If
Oh, you
there's
went out. Okay.
internet lost at all, then
Oh,
either on
okay.
my end or your end, it'll show on both ends that we're both frozen. But you're
Okay.
back, so
I'm back.
yeah.
Crises averted. But I never know like what's going to catch on with those, because there's these Twitter sized stories and the very minimal space to like do anything with, and I just kind of it's just like a general kind of story just summed up in 2 to 3 sentences. And it's so funny going like, this is the one. This is going to get some great engagement. And I send it out, and just no one like likes it or looks at it. And then I'll go like, and when my brain's like struggling, and I'm like, oh God, you can't win them every day. I guess I'll just throw this garbage out there, and people are like, this is fantastic. So it's so
Yeah.
funny. It just, no idea what people are going to enjoy, or So that's always a fun part of doing it too. It's like a kind of nice surprise every day to see how people react to it as well.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to get kind of, I don't know if it's completely true feedback, but get some kind of feedback in some form on like your writing.
Mhm.
Am I going in the right direction? Well, these 2 to 3 people who commented said so I must be doing something right.
Mhm. Is there a lot of people who do this? The BSS 365?
Yeah. It's V.
Oh,
As in like
V?
Victor. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what'll happen if you type in BSS 365, but
Make it a totally different thing.
you might go to a raunchy side of Twitter. I don't know.
Yeah, you might.
But yeah, there's quite a few people that do it. Normally it's like poets and stuff.
Okay,
And
yeah.
like there's a lot of poetry, not much short form. And if there is short form, it's certainly not horror based. So it's just funny also to like the dichotomy of like everyone else is like, talking about like the wistful youth that I lost or something for the whatever the prompt is. And I come in like, and then he slaughtered all the kids, with just this prompt out of nowhere. It just
Yeah,
does
I've
not.
seen that. I like that. Anyone reading through them all are like, "Oh, who's this radar guy? There's something wrong with this dude."
Yeah, I'm sure. Times they're like, "What is this person still doing here, ruining BSS 365?"
I wish he'd go away. He scares me.
Gosh dang it! Another one about kids. Come on, dude, stop killing off kids.
Somebody's got to stop him. Yeah. All right. So
it's the Breaking Bad thing with Jesse. You can't keep getting away with this.
yeah. Poor people. I mean, poor people. My heart goes out to them. All right. So your most recent release is Drowning in the Drink. Can you tell us what this one's about?
Yeah. So it is a grief horror, very short novella length, and it follows 2 main characters, Haley and her son. I didn't give them last names. I realize that now, but I guess that doesn't matter.
Her son's name is Michael, right?
Yeah, Michael. So I gave him first names.
There we
Didn't
go.
bother to give them last names.
That's important.
That's half the battle. So
there's sometimes where people don't give their characters names, and that's okay too.
There you go. So I survived. But it's about basically this one night. Haley wakes up. There's something in her house, and it's this black gunk, and it gets into her mind, and it makes her hear voices. And these voices, there's not like any coherent thing coming from them, so it's just gibberish, just constantly assailing her, unless she drinks. And when she drinks, the voices go away, at least for a little bit. And so, she has a choice to make. It's like, do I listen to these voices or do I, drink? And so because of that, she starts to become a functioning alcoholic, at least for a little bit. And at some point in the story, her son gets drawn into it too. But more than anything, this is kind of just this big story kind of about alcoholism and how it affects like not only the people who have it, but also the loved ones around them. I just don't think it necessarily gets talked about enough. I'm sure it does, certainly, but I know Stephen King writes a lot about alcoholism in his books and everything, but there's this element of like the people around you too that needs to be brought up as well, because it's not necessarily like they're not the biggest victims, but they are victims of it too. And I feel like I needed to put that in this book.
I'm curious, what was the genesis of Drowning in the Drink?
Yeah, so sad story time, y'all. But but like the week of Christmas 2022, my grandmother found my aunt, and she had succumbed finally to just years of alcohol abuse. And it's like the coroner on his report put something else, but like we knew. just like cleaning out her house afterwards, there was like 5 or 6 empty liquor bottles that she had just like that were just randomly hidden in her cabinets. I don't know why.
Hmm.
Doesn't make any sense. But because I mean, I don't think anyone was coming in and searching for it, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's just very clear. Alcohol finally got her, and like it was this surreal moment too. Because again, week before Christmas, so not the best way to
Not the,
spend
yeah.
Christmas week. But it's like the police officers. My grandma had found the body, and they're like, "You can't go in just in case, contaminating scene and stuff." And you have to wait for the coroner. So it was just a surreal moment. I showed up to like sit with my grandma, but it's like the middle of winter in Kansas, so it's pretty darn cold, and we're just
Hmm.
like waiting for the coroner to come pick up, her daughter and my aunt, and it's just this weird moment. And in it, I'm like, what? Why did this happen? Because when you lose someone, you try to figure out why. And so afterwards, to help me kind of deal with this sort of grief that came with it, I started writing "Drowning in the Drink," and it was fairly cathartic to write. Um, I'll admit there were days where maybe it hurt more than it helped in
Hmm.
some aspects, but overall, it definitely helped to kind of just like get all those emotions out there on the page. So that was the genesis of that book. Um,
Excellent. And I'm sorry to hear about your aunt.
well,
My
thank you. Yeah,
condolences, even though it's 2 years removed from it, but that's not easy,
yeah,
especially for your grandmother who lost a daughter.
yeah. That's like it's I always think about King Theoden in Lord of the Rings. He's like the parents should never outlive their children.
Hmm.
It's just a terrible thing to have. But thank you for the condolences. Yeah, and it's grief is such a weird thing too, because you can be and it's it could be years down the line. You could be perfectly fine, and there'll be moments where you're just like it'll just randomly hit you, and it'll
Yeah,
just feel awful. I don't
absolutely.
know
Yeah,
why, but it
it haunts
does.
it haunts you for a long time, even when you think
Yeah,
even when you think that particular ghost has gone away, it'll come back, and it may continue to do so for a very long time. But I think hopefully you're over the worst of it. But some
oh
people
yeah,
grieve for years and years. You know.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's just like the amount of loss, and I don't know how like someone with that level of grief could like function. It's that just seems wild to me. But maybe
Yeah.
maybe they're not functioning either. Maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah. I found that the story it does very well going into drinking culture, whether you drink alone or you're drinking with somebody else. Um, the idea is you're always thinking about the next drink, or you're thinking about the next night and where you're going to be drinking. I mean,
Yeah,
drinking it's like it's an obsession, right? Uh,
yeah.
and I was wondering if you've ever had any experience with this yourself, because it's very well done. It made me think, especially in the second half when we're with Michael and he meets that woman that he's with
Oh
for a
yeah,
while. And
yeah.
it's just like, I mean, I've been in situations like that myself where it's like borderline alcoholism. And,
Hmm.
I managed to come out of it not an alcoholic, but I know plenty of people
Yeah,
who have become alcoholics, and I know what
right.
it's like to be in that sort of cycle, sort of.
Yeah,
Maybe not
it is.
completely, but it felt very honest when I was reading this.
Yeah, and I'm very happy that you did not, become an alcoholic because that would just be an awful thing to have to go through too.
Oh, for
So
sure,
I'm
yeah.
I'm so glad that you did not become one, and that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. But like honestly, more than anything, I've never had to deal with it, and I've never like reached a point where I like, oh, I am maybe, you know, I could
I
become
might
an
have a problem.
alcoholic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have maybe at most, I drink like 20 times a year, maybe. I just don't drink often. I don't. And a lot of that is one, I don't enjoy it like the day after.
Yeah. The day
You know,
after
and I'm
is the
just
worst, man.
oh man, I'm just cognizant enough to go like, do I want
Do I
to?
really want to do
Not
that?
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, not really, you know. And
Yeah.
but the other thing is that I just there's a lot of alcoholics in my family, and like, especially on my mother's side, which my aunt was from that side of the family, and
Hmm.
they just like, you know, they'll my great aunts will polish off a couple bottles Christmas Eve, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that sort of deal. So I'm very aware of that. And honestly, I know it's not how addiction works, but like there's always a part of me that gets a little scared when I drink that it's like, this is the one that pushes me over the edge,
Yeah.
even though
Yeah.
I
I
know
hear
it's
you.
like not necessarily how it works, you know, but, and that's something that I feel like it came out in the book. I didn't mean to do that, but it just did. And maybe it's because I'm so close to it and I have that fear inside of me of like, this is what, you know, Michael is like, what could potentially happen to me? You
Hmm.
know, is this kind of fear? And that's what the mindset too was at the time, because it's also Michael is also kind of a stand-in for my cousin, my aunt's
Okay.
son.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it's and that kind of speaks to the ending. It's very interesting to see people's reactions to the ending. But like as I was writing Michael, I'm like, you know, if this is kind of the worst case scenario for my cousin, if this is what happens to him, and me going like, I need to get this onto the page so it doesn't happen to him, and
Hmm.
I like kind of like a blueprint of like this is how to avoid it. Um, so yeah, and that maybe that's what spoke in there to that sort of drink culture, because it is very prevalent. And I'm glad I was able to do it justice though. So
Yeah. For some reason, I like reading about alcoholics. I don't know why that is, but it's just one of those things, like uh, I'm weird. I'll admit it. I'm very, I'm very weird. But I don't like reading about drug culture though, because that just
hmm,
depresses the hell out of me. Like if you read a book
well,
where
interesting.
everyone's strung out in drugs all the time, I'm just like, oh, how can you live that way? I feel the sort of the same way with alcoholics too when reading about them,
Mhm.
but they're at least a little more entertaining, I think. Usually, anyway.
You know,
I
like
don't
a
really like being around them in real life because they can get scary too.
really true. And man, it you can have some pretty awkward interactions, like, you know, with drunk people too.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a kid, like, and that happened to me quite a few times growing
Yeah.
up, or there'd be some event and like it was at the age where I couldn't necessarily understand what alcohol was.
Hmm.
Um, you know, like I'd have a great aunt or an uncle kind of like talk funny and just like say something out of pocket and go like, huh? You know, as an 8-year-old, like, what
Yeah.
is happening? Is this a joke? Um,
Yeah. I hear you.
yeah, and as an adult looking back, you're like, oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
I know
wow.
what you mean. Uh, One thing I really enjoyed about the story too is that parasitic worm like thing that inadvertently is the cause of the alcoholism in this story.
Yeah.
Um, what I liked about it is it becomes a symbol for what a lot of alcoholics turn to the drink for. Like with the voices, there's so many voices in their head they can't shut it off, but the alcohol sort of makes that go away. It's a good. I think it's a good metaphor for combating mental illness with alcohol. And I was wondering, how did you come up with this interesting little worm? Or maybe
Yeah.
like how did this come about?
Right. Well, it all kind of stems back to that grief of losing my aunt, because like in the moment, you know, it's like, well, this isn't fair. that this happened to her. And the mind, like, because we don't have any real answers for addiction. And
Hmm.
so it's, just us as human beings, we want answers, we need answers, and if we don't get them, our mind will try to make up its own. And like, for me, it was, I wish there was something I could point to and go like, that's what did it. And so the
Hmm.
black gunk was kind of born out of that I'm like, it's so much easier to believe that just some black gunk infected her and it made her do this stuff, as opposed to, it's this difficult mental health issue that experts don't really have a handle on still. It's
Yeah.
so much easier to kind of push it away that way. And I feel like that's the great part about horror too, is that it's you can confront these kind of issues and these things with like nice, like metaphor, not nice, but metaphors and monsters and sort of that thing as fill-ins. And it's much easier to rationalize and process these topics that way.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I hopefully that came across in the book, but I don't
I
know.
think it did. Honestly, it did, because
Awesome.
from the beginning, each step of the alcoholism felt legitimate to me, and the black gunk being a part of it, I called it a worm, because that's how my mind sort of envisioned it. When it
Just like
goes
a
up the
little
nose,
worm.
it sort of like wiggles its way in. I remember being like, oh god. But anyways, all the steps that you go through seemed legitimate to me, and including the metaphor of that black gunk, sort of being the catharsis for everything. And from the beginning to its end, it just seemed like it belonged. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Oh, well, that is a relief.
and what also impressed me was the sort of compassion. Like, I'm not going to say here that you should always be there for somebody who's destroying themselves. What I am saying, though, is that you can maybe not judge them and try to understand them. And I liked that in the beginning, Michael had a lot of trouble understanding why his mom drank so much until he found himself in the exact same situation. And so he kind of understood her then. And that's the compassion I'm talking about, and that I really enjoyed in this story, because suddenly he understands and he's kind of stopped judging her. But it seems like we live in a society uh, that instead of using compassion, it uses judgment and condemning others. Now, I understand sometimes you
Yeah.
can't have somebody in your life, but and you kind of have to condemn them in that way. But there seems to be a lot of you know what I mean? Like in the workplace or
Yeah.
whatever, somebody comes in drunk, then other people are laughing and saying, "Oh, he was like totally wasted. What a drunk!" Right?
Right.
Instead of being like, "I wonder what's going on in his life. Why
Right.
is he
Like,
coming in
should we
drunk?"
get him help or
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, totally. Yeah. And I mean, and with family members too, like with my aunt, I did have to cut her out of my life because like she just continued to do it and we tried to get her help, and like you said, at some point, you need to put on your own air mask and then take care of others first,
Hmm.
and so like there is this, I still have a bit of guilt kind of lingering in my mind because our we were very distant towards the end. We used to be really close when I was little growing up, and
Hmm.
but it's because of her choices,
Yeah.
but I feel like there's a lot of other people who are addicts too that just don't get that kind of like empathy or support. And I think that has to do too with like the stigma that we think that it's a choice still subconsciously in our minds that, oh, they're just choosing to, go out and get plastered every night at the bar.
Yeah.
And I still find myself doing it sometimes with people. And it's,
Yeah. It's
and
not
it's
easy,
like, it's not easy. And
but I
it's,
like it when I see compassion, and you're just like, you're right. This is maybe the way it should be, instead of because I think we're just wired that way. Like, I'm
right.
criticizing most people for acting the way they're wired to work, the way they're programmed to work. But I think there's just a better way for humanity to be, in a sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And I mean, like I said, we're wired for it. And that's such a bummer, but I know we can do better, and
Hmm.
it's a difficult question to answer. Like, how do you get people to feel that empathy for others? And I certainly feel it now. Like I said, I still struggle sometimes with that sort of thing. But
Hmm.
like, but I definitely wanted to have that come across in this book. Oh wow. Thank you, Sable Star.
Yes, thanks.
Hey,
Sable Star just commented that they went and bought Drowning in the Drink. So thank you. Awesome.
yeah. Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy it. But I really wanted that compassion to come across because it's interesting to see it too, because I watch a lot of 80s films, 80s horror films,
Hmm.
and the way they treat, you know, people who have addiction in it is mean spirited to say the least.
Yeah.
Actually, ironically, I am wearing if anyone can see it, I'm wearing a Freddy Krueger Dare shirt here.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think that's a lot of people agree that like the most mean spirited kill in the whole entire Nightmare on Elm Street series is her name's Taryn, I believe. Yeah, Taryn, recovering drug addict. Instead of like just chopping her in half or turning into a giant worm and eating her, Freddy like has a handful of like syringes and stuff and then ODs her to death. And it feels
Yeah.
so mean spirited, but it's like even looking, to the 80s and early 90s and stuff with horror films, they just don't show much compassion for addicts in them. And
No.
certainly since my aunt passed, I've been noticing it. And it's like, wow, what we just thought of things, so differently. Even I guess it is a little bit now from the 80s. I keep thinking it's only been like 20 years. But it's a little bit longer. But
Yeah, a little bit.
even little bit. But even then, and I'm sure maybe even into the 2000s, I don't watch many 2000 horror movies, but I'm sure you could find those sort of elements in there.
Yeah.
And I feel like it needs to be shown that like they need compassion. They are human beings. This isn't
Yeah.
a choice.
You,
Now at some point, it becomes like, okay, we can only do so much. But
yeah, you can only do so much. And that's why this question was hard to ask, because I'm not saying that you have to always accept them,
right.
especially if they're hurting you. But you can at least try to understand what they're going through and understand that what they are doing to themselves isn't necessarily what they want to do. That they're not like the word, the gunk in your book. It's something else that's driving them to do it, and they don't have control.
Right. It's not like, yeah, it's not like they want to go and do it. It's not like they actively are at the bar, like say an alcoholic is at the bar and going like, you know what? Instead of getting up and getting a normal good amount of sleep and going to work tomorrow, I'm going to instead get absolutely shit faced
Yeah.
and just maybe lose my job. Like no one's actively making that decision.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you're addicted, it's like there's just this, I don't know. I'm not an addict, but it seems like there's just something in their minds that's like, do another one, do another one, do another one
Yeah.
of
More,
whatever it
more,
is.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More.
I do have that personality myself, and that's one reason why I identified with this story, because I have that, like, 1, 2 is not enough. Let's do 3 and 4. We've done 3 and 4 and we're feeling pretty good. Let's go for 5 and 6. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like,
man. Right.
yeah.
Let's keep going. Yeah. And it's, and I have a really like high alcohol tolerance, and it takes a hot minute for me for it to hit me. So
Hmm.
this, when I do go pretty heavy, drinking wise, that's exactly what I do is like, all right, I'm feeling good. Let's go up to 7. But because it takes so long for it to really get to me, like I'm feeling only drinks 3 or 4 by the time I'm at 8 or 7 or 8. And
Yeah.
then by the time I'm feeling 7 or 8, I'm just puking my guts out in the bathroom. And it's not,
It's like, why did I do that?
yeah, it's like, oh man. So I feel like I feel like just us as like just humans, there are some aspects, just different levels of say like some type of addiction in us. like whether it's binge watching a show or,
Hmm.
going for like second or third dessert or something
Oh
at the
yeah, it's
family
not
event.
just like
Yeah.
with alcohol. It can be with like that pie that was so good. That pizza, that pie that grandma cooked was so good. And she gave it to me. Thank God, because now I can eat the whole thing.
Now I don't have to share. But it,
Yeah,
yeah, but it seems like, there's some element of addiction. I think we can all relate to it. And
yeah,
I'm very happy on the author side of like, I'm so glad, that people are able to relate to this book. But on the human side, I'm just like, I would not want someone to relate to it, because that means,
not
you
completely.
understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, not completely. Understandably, like relating like a little bit like, oh yeah, that's how I feel when I binge watch Game of Thrones. That's one thing, but like going through something of that loss,
hmm,
is just brutal. And it's so interesting to see that too, because I've got a lot of great ARC readers, the book and stuff, and some great responses from them. But I've had chats with them too about how they were like, this is spot on. This is
hmm.
what I experienced with my family or my
Excellent.
friends. And it's interesting to connect on such a deep level,
Yeah,
with people online on that. But also, it's just my heart breaks for them that they went through something like that at
yeah. I
some
mean,
point in their life.
it is a heartbreaking thing, but hopefully anyone listening to this who does identify, or reading, anyone who reads this book and completely identifies with it, hopefully they came out the other side, and are, not doing that anymore, because there is hope. And
Yeah.
I wanted to mention that for the first 3 months of sales, you are giving away the proceeds to addiction charity. Is that right? And can you talk about that?
Yeah. I'm glad you actually brought that up. Yeah. So first 3 months, all the royalties I get, I will donate specifically to, it's a non-for-profit in Kansas called the DCCCA. Uh, it's not the easiest little acronym to remember. There's a
Lots
lot
of
of C's
C's.
in there. Yeah, lots of
Yeah,
C's.
lots of C's.
So I tell them maybe rebrand that, but it's a great, maybe shorten it.
Just
Just
a
one
little.
C, guys, just a
Yeah.
little bit. But it's a great non for profit. I live in Kansas, so I wanted to go with something. My original plan was to donate to a non for profit, that's more on a nation level, but they didn't even have any locations in Kansas. And I was like, well, that seems a little disingenuous. I want to get somewhere close to home for me. And and so I chose the DCCCA. Oh my goodness. I chose them.
C, C. You're like C, C,
DC.
C.
I have to actually count it every time too in my head.
I
I'm
would
like,
too. Don't worry.
but I decided to donate to them because they are Kansas based, it's closer to home, and they've been doing it for like 50 years. Um, and so they have a bunch of treatment centers, clinics,
Hmm.
through the major metropolitan areas in Kansas, which is two. There's two of them. There's not much here in Kansas, but
Mm.
we've got two of them, and it's in the Wichita and Kansas City, Kansas areas. And they have a lot. The treatment is to help people with substance abuse. And what's so cool about them is that they have on-site daycare. So like single parents don't have to send their kids away or figure out what the hell to do with them when they're getting treatment. And that's
Excellent.
so cool. And
Yeah.
they help, they make house visits to make, to try to see if they can salvage families, try to figure out, how to keep families together. And if they can't do that, they also help in the adoption process.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
yeah, to get the kids, to a home where they will be cared for and treated. And this is wild. It's another random service they have. Kind of like low income people in Kansas, they also help them get their driver's license, which
Hmm.
so they do a lot in the I'm this might be a little boring for some people, but I always do this with non-for-profits because not all non-for-profits are the same. I took a big look at their financials, because you can do that for non-for-profits, at least in America, because they're made public. And what stood out to me was the vast majority of costs went to paying their employees, which is exactly how it should be. The non-for-profit is service-based, helping people get this treatment. And that makes sense that a lot of it goes to that. But when you look at other non-for-profits, like 20, 30% of the grant money they receive will just go towards advertising and drumming up more grants coming in. So,
Yeah.
There's some non-for, and if you're fine with that, absolutely go for it. Continue to donate for non-for-profits. I'm not saying, don't do that. Absolutely not. But it's nice for me to go to donate to it and know that basically every single dollar I donate, almost the whole amount of that dollar is going directly towards helping people, and
Excellent.
yeah, that is something you can't get with a lot of non-for-profits, but you can with them. And I'm so happy to be, when the royalties come in, to be giving those away.
That's awesome. I think that's incredible. All right. So I want to thank you for talking about that and getting personal. I had
Yeah.
I had Nick Roberts on last weekend, and he
Right.
went into his addiction story, because a lot of his stories revolve around addiction as well. And he went right deep into his own personal history, and I was just like, oh my God, I didn't even ask. I just asked him to to introduce
Right.
himself. And he went into this whole deep and I very appreciative of that. So
Yeah.
I want to thank you as well for going into that. So only a couple more questions here, and I'll take the chains off your ankle, and you can go.
I'm free.
Now, last question. This is the question I ask everybody who comes on the show. What author, can be one or two, doesn't matter, do you think is underrated and more people need to be talking about?
Jeez. So I know you prepared me for this, but I did not narrow it down just one or two. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna rattle off a couple.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so Wendy Dalrymple, she does fun. Her whole thing is pink gothic horror type deal.
Cool.
Yeah, hers is great. So if you want fast paced, kind of nice, fun horror, she's perfect for that. Adam Hulse he's great too. He's great. His writing's definitely different from it. He did a great 2-book sort of version of The Blob.
Okay.
Type deal called The Growth. But I love those books. Those books were great. Kat Voller also is another one. And Kat also, there's just, there's not much filler. It's just all action, but it's interesting, the ideas and the concepts she comes up with. I remember reading the Desert Island Game by her, and I devour a lot of horror media, so I most of the time I figure out what the hell's going on. And it was getting to the end of part 1, and I was sitting there going, okay, I know what's gonna happen. And then the last page, I read it and went, I don't know what's happening here. What is going on? So
she totally subverted your expectations.
Yeah, she totally subverted it. Yeah, I mean, I would say Brian Bauer. A lot of people of his stuff. I think he, needs to get a little more love. Yeah, let me see. There was one more. Coy Hall, I feel like is gaining up there in popularity. He has some interesting stuff. He just came out with a new book. Oh, I'd kill myself because I can't remember the title of it. Man, I'm dying here trying to think of what it is. Gosh, I don't. His titles are always so intricate too.
Yeah.
But he has the Scythian, I believe that Scythian Wolf Press is also him. And he does a lot of work with that. And then not necessarily a writer, but the Sinister Scoop is it's just kind of a nice sort of magazine and they offer editorial services like editing and formatting too for writers. Obviously, you pay them and stuff, but still, they do it, and they do a great job with that, and they help really promote other people in the horror community, and they do a fantastic job at that. I think they should get more praise.
And they
And
have awards, right?
uncomfortably, yeah, they
Like Green
just
Scoops or something like that.
the Sinister Scoops, yeah, and
That's it. Yeah,
Nick Roberts, he
he won.
swept.
He swept it. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did pretty well anyway.
yeah. Kudos to Nick. Yeah, he got like 2, 3. I can't remember how many. Good job. Good
Yeah,
job though.
excellent job.
At least 2. But yeah, they have awards and stuff. So I feel like they need to get a little more love. And the same for Candace Nola's sort of press, and she has her version of that, and it's called Uncomfortably Dark. I definitely recommend checking them out because they do a lot of author reviews, and I think they do a little bit of publishing work too. But yeah, they also are a great resource in the horror community for horror writers. So sorry, Jason, that was like 7 or 8.
That was great. That was awesome. I sent you that. I first of all, I always send that question early because I don't want to just when people ask me a question like that, my brain always just goes blank, and I'm like, oh god, oh no, let me think here. So I like to prepare people for that one, and you know what, you did awesome. You knocked it out of the park. Thank you very much. I wrote down like a huge list here of everything.
Oh wow.
And because I want to check these books out too myself. So that's one reason why I ask. Another reason why I ask is because on TikTok or BookTube, you always see people talking, like raving about one book, and there's a whole list of other people who never get talked about. So I want to try to bring some love to those people too. And that's definitely like a goal of mine. That's why I started my BookTube channel, because I just like talking about books, and I want to get people, if I can, to read the books that I love. So share the love with authors, Yeah. All right. So before I let you go, do you have any new releases coming out soon that readers can look forward to?
Unfortunately, not that I can talk about anyways.
Okay.
So, and I love doing self-publishing for the moment. So I will continue to do that. I just don't have anything in the pipeline. But the great thing about self-publishing is probably here in a month or 2, I'll be like, all right, I'm throwing out this book. So
here's something. Here you go.
So it'll probably change very quickly from me having nothing to me going like, all right, I'm releasing 5 things at once or something like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to anything you put out. And I want to go back and read what was that? The Altar one. The Altar from Space. I want to read that because I love space horror. Ooh, I love space. Space terrifies me. I mean, just the idea of being in it is no thanks. All right. So where can people find you online if they wish to follow you or reach out to you? I know, well, we've talked quite a bit about your TikTok. What's your handle there, and where else can they find you?
Let's see. I'm Radar DeBoard on TikTok and on Instagram. I also have, an author page on Amazon if you wanted to check out my books there. And, you can follow me on there. So that way, when I randomly drop a self-published book, because I'm not good at promoting my own stuff, we have talked about that, you'll actually know it because Amazon will send you an email.
Yeah.
And then what am I on Twitter? I think it's Radar Steel. Let me check real fast. It's something.
It's something like that. I should.
Yeah, Radar Steel on Twitter. Yes. Yeah, Radar Steel 1 on Twitter. So you can find me through there.
If I'll put at least a link to your author page in the show notes, so everyone go look for that. And I want to thank you for coming on and chatting with me. I had such a good time talking with you. I hope that we can do it again when you release something in the future.
Yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure. So,
and thanks to everyone who came along, especially Sable Star, for all the great comments. And we will catch you all next time.